Hello YouTube, how's it going? It's N2Vin1967. Name here is Vince. I recently picked up an 851 on eBay, fairly cheap. Of course the shipping was a little bit more than what I wanted to pay for it, but at first glance it looked like it was in real bad shape, but the housing, as you can see, is not in such a terrible condition that it can't be buffed out. The faceplate is in pretty good shape too. These are kind of hard to buff out. You have to manually buff them because if you use a machine on them, they tend to haze up. So I mean, it should be easy to bring back. The dial was seized, and what I did is, of course, now the dial doesn't want to cooperate with me. I oiled up the usual culprits with some turbine oil, which is close to what Western Electric and ITT used to recommend for dial oil back in the day. Moves freely. I hope to be able to buff out that yellowing inside the dial ring. I'm sorry, inside the base of the dial, not the dial ring. The dial ring looks pretty good. And the key strip was messed up pretty badly. My concern when I first saw this on eBay was that, you see, it's rusted through the chrome, and that's the upper portion of the key strip. So that means wherever it was a moist area up top, because the base itself was also corroded up here a bit. So what I ended up doing was, I thought it could clean out real easy. What I ended up doing was I bead blasted it, and this is the best that I could get out of it because the pitting was down pretty good. And then I just clear coated everything. I salvaged the model ID and the date code on it as well. And I had another key strip from a real basket case phone that I purchased many years back. This should clean up pretty good, and as you can see, it operates just fine. Hook switch components are all there. Somebody had previously wired a tail with a male amphenol on it. The contacts are not corroded, and again, from the moisture, the outside of the casing was. These are the old metal Bunker Ramo amphenols. So we're talking way back in the day. This thing is from '73. It was originally manufactured, and it was refurbished in '7 of '74. So from new, it hadn't been out on the field for too long. Now, another thing that caught my attention when I purchased this was that it had, let's see if it'll clear, a Western Electric G5 handset. It was a little scuffed up. I'm going to try to buff it and preserve it with the phone. Now, the G5 is a push to talk. You would use something like this in a noisy area where you'd answer the telephone, of course, holding the button depressed as such. Say hello, and then release it so you could hear the other party without any of the background noise feeding through the microphone. I don't know what shape it is inside. I haven't opened it up yet. I just finally figured out that these are in fact Allen screws, and I couldn't see them originally because they were a little oxidized. So they cleaned up a little bit when I ran the Dremel over them. And in a few, I'm going to continue the video by taking this apart, and we'll see what's inside and how it works. One thing that I omitted to mention earlier is that this telephone, this 851, was set up for a G12 handset, and I'm trying to locate one as well. If I could find that, I'll bring it back to its original G12 configuration. But I've done a quick search on eBay, haven't come up with anything, so maybe I'll search around some more and see if I could find one. The one that came with it was hardwired, so apparently, and I know this for a fact, these G5s are not they never came with a G12 connector on them. So for those that don't know, a G12 connector is the same that's on the trim line. Hello YouTube, it's Vince N2VIN 1967. Um, I started shooting this video earlier and a few days ago actually, and I did it with my phone in the vertical position, so it's kind of narrow. So some of the video that I edit into this will be from that previous recording. But this is an 851 that I recently picked up from eBay. It was originally manufactured in October of 1973 and refurbished in July of 74, so it didn't quite spend that much time out in the field. When I got it, and I bought it sight unseen, it was fairly cheap, and of course the shipping was a little high, but the dial was seized. And I used a little bit of turbine oil, which is close to what was recommended by Western Electric and ITT and Stromberg back in the day. Let me see if I can do this without screwing up the video. Put the dial back in, and it was seized. The dial was originally seized, but now it's moving freely. When I first saw it on eBay, the top of the pictures, which I'll include in the video later on, the top of the base was corroded. As you can see, there's a little corrosion on the top of the components internally. And the back itself was a little corroded, but I bead blasted the base and I clear coated it. I managed to save the model number and the refurb code, but the key strip was a mess. It was pretty heavily corroded. It was chromed, and in the previous video I showed where the chrome was rusted through, but here I had already bead blasted it by this point and clear coated it, of course, and it's going to be a usable piece to rebuild another key strip for future projects. This key strip was from another phone that I had purchased earlier, and it was a basket case. I think I purchased it some 9 or 10 years ago. It was an 851 that was probably in a warehouse that was wet. But this key strip was moving freely and it's working fine. So contacts are clean. Everything else, the buttons and everything, should clean up nicely. Here, as you'll note, there are some wires punched down. This is an earlier version of the 851, 2851. It had a 66 block internally rather than the Amphenol on the back. And a previous technician had wired the Amphenol tail to it, which is right here somewhere. Sorry about that. My shop is a total mess. I've been trying to clean it up for months now, and I keep getting one project after the next. It's got a metal housed bunker Ramo Amphenol cover. It was a little oxidized. I hit it with the Dremel and it was fine. The contacts inside were clean, as you can see. I've tested it and it works fine. Now, this set came with a connector, pardon the finger, came with a connector for a G12 type handset. And the handset that was included, which I'm going to splice in the other videos as well, was a G5 with a push to talk, and I go into explaining as to how the push to talk works in the other videos. This one I've already started sanding so I could polish it down. It was pretty badly beat up. You can't see that from the way you can see that I've sanded, but you can't see where the marks were from where I've started to sand it. Hopefully it'll clean up nicely and it'll polish up good as new. But the G12 handset had a connector as such, same as the trimline telephone. Has a tab there that would release it. It's almost like the modular concept. And on the handset end, it had a color-coded end as such that would just plug in. I'm hoping to find a G12 handset for this. I've posted it around, see if I can get something, a black G12. If anybody has one out there, I would really appreciate it. Just let me know in the comments. And I guess that's all for now. If you want me to keep making videos about phones and whatnot as I screw around in the shop here, just like, subscribe, comment, of course. Um, the dial itself right here is yellowed out. I hope to be able to take that apart, sand it down a little bit, buff it out, and it should come back white, or close to white as possible. The dial ring itself is in pretty good shape. And with that said, let me show you the back real quick of the way the bead blasting came out. I just bead blasted it real quick. It wasn't too much I can do about it because the pits were deep, but it's clean, it's clear coated, and hopefully it will keep for years to come. Alright guys,